David sat in the dimly lit laundromat, the hum of machines and occasional clunk from the dryer blending into the background. His jeans sagged slightly at his hips, his belt looped loosely, a forgotten afterthought. As the clothes tumbled in the drum, his mind drifted miles away, back to the Middle East, the sweltering heat, the sandstorms, and the constant tension that had become a part of him. His fingers absent-mindedly traced the edges of his neck tattoo, the words "built for chaos," etched in black ink by a brother who was no longer here. They had been inseparable once, bonded by war, survival, and a shared sense of purpose. That tattoo wasn't just ink. It was a reminder of who he was then and the man he still grappled with becoming. The doctors called it PTSD, labeling the flashbacks, the nightmares, and the detachment from everyday life. But to David, it felt less like a disorder and more like an identity. 4 tours in the sandbox had carved deep grooves in his mind, ones that couldn't be smoothed over with therapy or pills. War still called to him in strange ways, even if it was through fragmented memories of patrols under the scorching sun, the rumble of distant explosions, and the brotherhood that kept him going. As the dryer clunked again, he blinked, momentarily pulling himself back to the present. The mundane, everyday reality of the laundromat felt foreign, almost dreamlike compared to the sharp edges of his memories. His life now seemed like a ghost, an echo of the man who had once thrived in chaos. He wasn't sure which world he belonged to anymore, the one outside with its quiet, uneventful moments, or the one that lived on in his mind, full of noise, heat, and danger. David's day-to-day life felt like it was stuck in neutral, just like the engine of the 1972 Camaro before he and Myra had gotten their hands on it. Working security, even for high-profile dignitaries or packed stadiums, no longer provided the thrill or sense of purpose he had once found in the chaos of war. He'd show up, do his job, and go home, but nothing seemed to fill that void. Myra, with her understanding nature and shared military experience, was the one constant that kept him grounded. Together, they'd spent countless hours restoring that old Camaro, bringing it back to life piece by piece. It had been a project, something to focus on outside the daily grind, a distraction, maybe even a form of therapy. Their gun collection was another shared interest, a way to reconnect with the skills they both honed during their service. But even those hobbies, as satisfying as they were, didn't quite scratch the itch that lingered in the back of his mind. Boredom had become a battle of its own, a quiet enemy that gnawed away at him. The adrenaline rush he used to crave, the sharp focus that came with high-stakes situations, was nowhere to be found. Myra knew. She could sense when his mind wandered, slipping back to the days when danger was a constant companion. She never pushed, just offered him a steady hand and a presence he could rely on. Despite their shared interests and the deep bond they had forged, David couldn't help but feel a disconnect between the man he used to be and the man he was now. No amount of rebuilt engines or hours at the range could replace the sense of purpose that had once driven him forward. Something was missing, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. David's daily routine had become almost ritualistic, a constant in a world where everything else seemed to shift or lose meaning. That early morning run, followed by push-ups and calisthenics, wasn't just about fitness. It was about being prepared, staying sharp, and having control over something when everything else felt uncertain. It was the one thing he could rely on, a promise to himself that he would never let his body or his mind slip. Even Myra had come to accept that David's commitment to his workouts wasn't just about staying in shape. It was part of who he was. She would laugh with her parents about how nothing, not even their future wedding, could interfere with his 8 a.m. routine. But behind that humor, there was truth. David had missed important moments because of his unwavering dedication to his training. Even the funeral of a childhood friend couldn't shake him from his morning workout, though it weighed heavily on him later. That calling he felt, the pull toward something greater, was always there, whispering at the edges of his consciousness. He couldn't ignore it, no matter how hard he tried to fill his days with mundane tasks or personal projects. There was an unspoken belief that someday, whatever it was he was preparing for would reveal itself. Until then, he would keep running, keep pushing, keep searching,